So let's take a closer look at the two Games Workshop discount deals going on sale this weekend, with the big and plastic Mechanicum Battle Group box set and two shiny new Cerastus knights, but at a discount. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today we're talking about Games Workshop's releases this week. Games Workshop have felt like they've kept the discount offerings flowing recently, the Inquisition and then the Blood Angels, and now we've got the arrival of this long-awaited Mechanicum Battle Group and some bonus knights thrown in for good measure. In this one we'll take a closer look at the Mechanicum Battle Group and the Cerastus Pattern Knights and talk about how good a deal they look, primarily looking from a 40k sort of perspective, as that's what I do on this channel. Both of these box sets are going up for pre-order within the next 12 hours or so from the release of this video. They'll be on pre-order from Saturday the 3rd of August around the world, and then full release in stores on the 17th of August, where physical copies should be shipped out. The Mechanicum box set is the Horus Heresy Big Box, with 20 Tech Trials, 6 Jump Pack Thalax, 2 Big and Stompy Castellax Battle Automata, and the Triaris Armoured Conveyor. The pricing for this one is $210, £130 or €170. So sorry, it seems like my initial numbers were a tiny bit out when I made a video about this on the launch. It's still the same price in US dollars, though it does look like the UK and the EU prices are a little bit more than I thought, unfortunately. Even at those prices though, it is still a little bit cheaper than the Solar Auxilia launch box that came out earlier in the year, and if anything that's a bit of a pleasant surprise from Games Workshop, given that this box is coming out post the big price update that they did. In any case, quite nice to see Games Workshop not just arbitrarily raise the prices with literally every new release. In any case, I was curious enough to have a bit of an estimate as to how much these might cost separately, look at how good the theoretical deal is for the Mechanicum, and then do the same for the Knights offering. In any case, if you were looking to get the Mechanicum box set or the Knight set, generally my first port of call would be discount retailers around the world. There's loads of options out there which you can easily search depending on where you are in the world. I do have a bunch of links down in the video description as well that help support the channel. There's Element Games in the UK for 15% off, Wargame Portal in the USA again for 15%, Gap Games in Australia for 21% off, and 10% off from Fenris Workshop in Canada. All of those are links down in the video description, and if you were going to pick up any of these anyway, buying through any of those does help to support the channel a bit, and no extra cost to yourself. For pre-order times for these guys, it's usually midnight for Wargame Portal and Fenris Workshop, going from Friday to Saturday, Central Time in the USA and Eastern Time in Canada, then 10 AM over in the UK, and midday Australian Eastern Time in Gap Games in Australia. As we know, Games Workshop can be a little bit variable as to the availability of the box set. My guess is that the Mechanicum one probably won't sell out instantly. The Solar Auxilia one tended to have at least fairly good supply on it, though you never really know if Games Workshop's going to underproduce like they do with Kill Team or some of their 40k boxes quite regularly. The Knight set I'm a little bit less sure of. It almost feels like a bundle box to try and clear some stock by giving them out at a cheaper price. And for that reason I don't know how much of a supply they might have. It might depend on how much they had in their warehouses. If you're looking for the Knights, at least I'd probably try and be there early just in case, though there is a reasonable chance that there's plenty of those to go around. We just don't know at this point. In any case, returning to look at the Mechanicum box set and try and estimate prices for things. First up we have the Thalax constructs. These ones a disturbing cyborgized mix of human and machine, even if they outwardly look like robots pretty much. These guys are equipped with jump packs and various flavours of heavy weapons. I was a little bit unsure as to where to estimate the price for these guys. I've gone for the price of 10 Cataphractid Terminators as a result, as they feel like they're maybe a little bit bigger than the Terminators, but not hugely, and you do get less of them. Then we've got the Tech Thralls. For their estimate, I've gone for the same as the Solar Auxilia. That seems kind of equivalent as a Horus Heresy Horde style unit, so £47.50 or $79 for the unit of 20 for them. They're basically almost tech zombie type things, marching forward under program command with their laser weapons to destroy the enemy. The big centrepiece of the box is the Mechanicum Transport, the Triaris Armoured Conveyor. £57, $92 or €72, this estimate based on the Dracosan transport. It's a pretty cool looking vehicle in my opinion, cutting a very distinctive silhouette. I think the tracks look quite fun for it, and it's got that notable shock ram that protrudes out the front, incorporating a whole load of disruption fields to ram to death anything that should get in its way as it transports the Mechanicum around. Its weapon systems are supposedly crewed by enslaved servitor brains as well. Always good of the AdMech to include a bit of body horror into their designs. Finally, and perhaps my pick for the coolest miniatures in the box are the Castellax Battle Automata. I must admit I think my favourite bit about the Mechanicum range in the Horus Heresy are all the automata that they have. These guys basically having a feel of precursors to the Castellan robots in 40k, equipped with great big saws or claws and mounting some fearsome firepower on their back-mounted weapon, which you can see a few of the options for at the bottom there. I've estimated £50 or $80 for these based on the 40k Castellan robots. Putting that all together, and it looks like it'll be around about £211 or $343 for the miniatures contained in the box set if brought separately directly from Games Workshop. So if it's at £130, $210 and €170, that'd be around about a 39% discount. And if my guesses are at least somewhere near accurate, that'd be slightly on the upper end of Games Workshop's Battle Force type boxes, though not excessively high. I don't know if I might have been a bit generous with the pricing for the Thalax based on 10 Terminators. Let me know what you think that they'll cost eventually down in the comments. Taking this from a 40k kind of perspective and the general discussion of AdMech players around this, it's generally maybe a slightly frustrating release. Most of the feedback and talk about the actual miniatures is they're pretty cool. Chunky automata with all sorts of weird and wonderful weapons from the Age of Darkness, and generally a lot of love for the miniatures themselves. It is just frustrating for 40k AdMech players, as most people commenting online are generally of the opinion that they'd just like some 40k rules for these, or at least if not some sort of 40k AdMech equivalent on a similar sort of vein. As for most of these, they just don't really have particularly direct choices in the 40k lineup to proxy them for. I guess if you're trying to maximally make everything work, the Castellax could be run as Castellans. The Tech Thralls, I suppose, would have to be Skitarii of one sort or another. They lack the weapon upgrades and special weapons. I guess you could convert some, perhaps. I guess the Armoured Conveyor would have to be a Dune Rider if it's going to do transport duties. It feels maybe a little bit unusual for that. I guess you could maybe convert a big gun for it and make it a disintegrator. I feel like if you want to use the Thalax as a jump unit, they don't really have particularly great equivalents. I think I might be most tempted actually to make them work as Cataphoron destroyers perhaps, maybe just field them as a walking unit and just ignore the fact that they've got jump packs, maybe using things like the big plasma guns as a ranged firepower squad, or a bit rough and ready. I feel like you could probably get by with casual games, though it does feel like proxying is going to be more of a stretch than most for things like the Solar Auxilia or the Space Marine Heresy releases. I think part of the annoyance is that AdMech are pretty well known for dredging up past technology, making it work and sending it into battle somehow. It just seems a shame that there's so many people who would happily probably buy, paint and field these miniatures for work in the 40k setting as well. Overall interest and demand for this one seems to be a bit niche within the 40k sort of spectrum. When I did a poll a little while back, looks like it's got a similar sort of interest to Necromunda Hive Secundus. Some interest from 40k fans, though probably not going to have quite as wide appeal as the big 40k battle forces. I'll be interested to hear your takes on it though. Would you be tempted to pick up a Mechanicum box set, either for use in Heresy, a painting project, or trying to make it work in 40k somehow? We'll be interested to hear your guys' takes. Otherwise, moving on to the second big combined offering, largely aimed at the Heresy, is the interesting offering of a Knight Castigator plus a Knight Acheron, two of the big Cerastus Tallboy Knights. These ones are fully fieldable in Warhammer 40k and in Heresy, and for once Games Workshop has actually tried to make the Cerastus Knights at least somewhat balanced in 40k, though unfortunately the Acheron really is the one that's come off worst out of the bunch of them though. In any case, the perhaps slightly surprising box set is called Knight Battle Group, Castigator and Acheron, and it basically has two of Games Workshop's single most expensive plastic models put together in the same box, and then it looks like the discount on the box set is roughly 26% off. Individually the Knights cost £125 or $210, but this set is $310, £190 or €245, and you get the two Knights rather than one. If you're in the US, it means that it's slightly less than $100 more than you pay otherwise, or essentially buy one Knight, get the next one half price, if you prefer that way of looking at it. I was wondering if these might be a Games Workshop web store only one, but it seems like that's very much not the case. So with a 15% discount, it could be two Knights for $260 or £161. Not too bad on the points per dollar kind of front, at around about 3.4 with this. In game in 40k, the Castigator is by far the better of the two with current rules. is 465 points, or 445 for the Chaos Knights. The Cerastus Knights are the ones that get the boosted stat lines with 25 wounds and a faster movement characteristic. Nice and tough and faster moving, and that is one advantage over the Questoris. The Castigator gets a fairly good general purpose gun in the bolt cannon, 18 shots at strength 6, AP 2 and damage 2 with twin linked. It's going to be at least fairly effective into monsters and vehicles that are less than toughness 12, though in general is going to excel best against anything that's toughness 6 or less, stacking a whole load of saves with good AP and damage. If it doesn't kill what it's shot at, then they get -1 to hit next turn, and its bondsman ability is a pretty solid one as well, giving the knight that it's boosting sustained hits 1 and better AP by 1. That pairs really nicely with Helverins. In melee, they both basically copy the standard Questoris chainsword sort of melee, getting a sweep and a strike mode. Out of the two, the Acheron has unfortunately been done kind of dirty by Games Workshop on the rules front. This one's the knight with a great big flamer cannon. I think it is one of the more fun variants of knight. It gets a big flame tank on the back of it with a modular tubing plugging it into that great big flamer. Broadly speaking, its stats and its melee are pretty much the same as the Castigator, but unfortunately the flame cannon stats are just very underpowered versus most other knightly weapons. 2d6 auto hits at strength 8, AP 1 and damage 2 isn't nothing, but it's far less than virtually any of the other knights offer. It's kind of short ranged, and its special rule is to strip cover from the thing that you've burnt with it, and I'd argue that's just not really too good when you're playing knights. Primary knight weapons really need to at least threaten to destroy or deal some major damage to their target, rather than just being part of the setup for other knights shooting. Its bondsman ability is maybe a bit awkward as well, basically triggering extra battle shock tests in the fight phase for armigers. I guess potentially could stop an enemy interrupting or something, but in general it's pretty niche and a little bit clunky to set up. Overall though, I think this one certainly captured a few people's attention when it was announced last weekend. It's just unusual for knights of any sort to get a discount, so any ones that do crop up tend to be scrutinised quite a lot. The Cerastus Knights might have been ones that people have been eyeing up since they came out. Most Imperial and Chaos Knight collectors might have a good complement of the regular kits for their faction, but might not have chosen to expand to these yet. And having a temporary offering where you save a bunch of money on them might be a nudge that a few people take to pick them up. As I mentioned on Sunday when I first saw this, it does sort of feel like Games Workshop might be trying to clear unsold stock of these. They're nice enough models in themselves, though they did come out significantly after the Lancer, which I feel like it might have absorbed a fair bit of the hype around getting a Cerastus in plastic. Plus they released 2 of them at the same time to further dilute sales. As a result, as mentioned earlier, I'm not too sure how good the supply on these will be. Hopefully there's enough to go around for people who do want to pick them up if Games Workshop is trying to push them. If their main incentive is to push back on a stock backlog though, then there might be a few less of them than people might want. So it really wouldn't surprise me too much if stores get small allocations of these, but I guess we'll see on that front. Finally, probably worth just mentioning the elephant in the room that they could eventually go to Legends. I feel like since 10th edition came out and Games Workshop sent the Space Marine Heresy era stuff to Legends, it's just made everything else equivalent feel a little bit less certain, at least for the future down the line. When they did the whole Legends of the Horus Heresy type thing, Games Workshop did confirm that for 10th edition the Custodes and the Knights won't get moved to Legends, deciding that they were appropriate to treat differently. That seemed very sensible given that they're both armies where kind of half their range is in Forge World or Imperial armor type options. They only have a few kits in plastic otherwise. Feels like they all should be good at least for 10th edition, and I'd certainly hope far beyond that, though beyond that we really don't know. I guess the next crunch time where bad things might happen to them could be in 11th edition if Games Workshop decides to redo the Imperial armor indexes and focus on the core 40k range. They'd certainly get Legends rules as a result, so you'd still be able to field them, still have the option of proxying for other knights and things, even in a worst case scenario. Though in general my hope is that eventually they just get around to putting these into the Imperial and Chaos Knight Codex. I think it really would make a lot of sense for them, given that it's not like they have a crazy amount of knight variants anyway, and now these guys are in plastic, there's not much massively distinguishing them from the other knightly variants. Stylistically they look very similar, obviously a different chassis but not much beyond that. In any case though, let me know what your thoughts are on the Knights deal and the Mechanicum box set. Would you be tempted to pick any of them up or not? Look forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments below. As mentioned, if you were looking to pick up any of these and want to save a bit, then feel free to check out the links in the video description when they go live. As ever, hopefully Games Workshop have managed to get enough of them to go around and people won't be left disappointed after being teased with things. In any case, looking forward to your thoughts down in the comments. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more news and model reviews from Games Workshop. I do tend to post new videos just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description if you'd like to help support and keep these coming. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description below. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.